Hi guys, it's Kayla from Beyond Paranormal. I thought I would do a bit of a story time. I have a lot of paranormal experiences that happen in my life and a lot lately as well. And I'm just going to take my glasses off so you don't have constant reflections. So I've always had spirit activity in my life since I was born basically. I've lived in haunted houses. I have had very strange things happen to me basically throughout my whole entire life. So I'll get to what's happening at the moment in a little while, but I really wanted to just touch on some of my own experiences and what has really led me to stay in the paranormal spirit, like be really interested in this type of work. So when I was born, we moved into a house in Perth. I was a few months old. I was getting close to being just around a year old, I suppose. And the house we'd moved into was quite an old house, and there was an old man spirit there. And my mum had picked up on that, and she didn't know if he didn't like her in particular or just that he felt that it was his house. So he would often rattle the pans around in the kitchen and be really creepy and things like that. She came into the kitchen one day to find her glass of orange juice levitating in the air. We had some very strange instances where a fire started out in the backyard for no apparent reason, and also we lived on a main road, and the back part of the house was sealed off. There was also a door that had they had no key for it, so it was locked all the time. So there was no way to sort of get out through the side of the house without having that key, so they just didn't use that, obviously. And one day my mum couldn't find me, and by this stage I must have been walking. Sorry, there's an annoying fly rattling around. And so she went looking for me, and she found me walking along that side path to go out onto the main road. And luckily had got there just as that was happening, and scooped me back up and came out and found that the door had been unlocked, even though there's no key, and the door was not, it was always locked. And I don't think even the landlord had the key. I think it was one of those creepy doors that just there's no key, and you just sort of forget about it because there's nothing you can do about it. But anyway, it was open, and she's just like... So we don't think that old man was very nice, and apparently I used to talk to him and mumble and things like that at something anyway, because I couldn't talk very well at one, obviously. And just a whole bunch of other things happened, and you could hear walking and things in that house. When we moved, so we went back to the Sydney area, so we moved across the country again, and fast forward to when I was an early teenager, and I went and stayed at my friend's house, and we decided to do a Ouija board session, as teenagers do. And so us three girls, we didn't know anything about Ouija boards. We didn't know how to protect ourselves, how to open it, how to close. I didn't even think we closed it because we knew nothing about it. We were just interested in finding out who our husbands were going to be when we were older, and boyfriends and all that silly stuff. And we did bring something through, and I can't really remember the actual session that we did, but I remember something happened at the end of it that creeped us all out. And I believe we had candles on, and one blew out, and so we went, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. And this particular friend of mine had a 2-story house, and for the rest of the time that I was at her house after the Ouija board session, something was not right about the upstairs area. So whatever had come through had stayed up there. And then when I left, I believed it followed me home. And at this stage, I was about 14 or 15, so I really didn't have any understanding of how to protect myself, how to be aware of anything like that. And I'd always felt presences, always felt beings. I could go past a house or a string of houses and feel the different energies in each house. So I'd be like, oh, that's a really nice, loving, homely house. And then the next one, you'd be like, oh, I really wouldn't want to go in there. The people feel off. I remember being scared of some people and feeling very uneasy around them, and even as a small child, not wanting to hang around with certain people because I would be like, oh, that person's, their intentions aren't good. And, I could pick up someone who was really creepy and like had sinister, bad vibes toward children, kind of thing. And so that's something that's stuck with me always. I've always had that. And so when I go and do my investigations, I really utilize that. I use discernment, and if I have a bad feeling, I don't go into certain places or certain areas. I did an investigation today at the Abernethy mine forest, that area, and twice during that investigation, I was like, don't go that way. So I didn't go that particular direction. So I try to listen to that quite heavily. So after the Ouija board session, I went home and we just built a new house. So my parents had bought a piece of property up in the Blue Mountains, and we lived in like a little, really secluded, cute little area in Valley Heights. And basically, like, it was like a housing estate that really no one knew about. It was sort of off the beaten track. If you didn't go down this certain road, you would never find it. It was like really, it was really pretty and beautiful, but it was just by itself. And we don't know what happened on that land. We don't know anything about it, but there was always like a weird kind of vibe the back part of our property. Anyway, so we did the Ouija board session, came home, and I remember it was very hot. It was a very, very hot night, and it was summertime, so we really shouldn't have had blankets or sheets on my bed, like, to go to sleep with. My fan was on, and I remember laying there, and I always have my door like about this much open, but not fully open, and my bedroom, pardon me, was like right at the end of the hallway, and it would go, like, if I sat on my bed and looked out the door, you would see into a very large lounge room at a very high ceiling because we had a split level home. So really creepy, and I didn't really want to have that looking at me while I was sleeping, so I would keep my door mostly closed but not fully. And I really, really felt uneasy about the bathroom and the toilet of this house in the downstairs area where we were, the children. And I don't know why. As I said, it's a newly built house. Why would you feel uneasy? There were no windows into the bathroom or the toilet, and they were in the middle of the house, so it was very weird. Also, if you went underneath the house, there was a very peculiar energy in the middle of the house, so it was probably linked. Anyway, fast forward to going to bed, and I was fast asleep, and I remember being woken up with something breathing into my ear, and I could just tell it wasn't human. I knew it wasn't, and I could feel its breath, and I heard it say something, but I still to this day don't remember what it said. Maybe it wasn't English, probably wasn't. And I was frozen. I was freaking out. I was like, what the hell was that? I didn't want to open my eyes, so I didn't. And I got my blanket somehow. I don't know how I did, but I got my blanket and put it over my face, over my ears. And even to this day, I still sleep with my sheet over my ears. I can't quite bring myself to not do that. It's just something that I've had. And I think I have had that experience happen again. So it's sort of like ingrained that, that worry that I'm going to have that same thing happen again. Anyway, and so that was like one of the creepiest things that's happened. And then I also had this really, she wasn't creepy to start with, but after this, I think it sort of attached to this doll, like one of those Elizabethan porcelain dolls, and she was a bride, and I don't know who gave it to me, but it doesn't matter. And I, at night time, felt like she was always staring at me, and she was probably about 4 foot tall, maybe 3.5 foot tall, and she had this beautiful pink wedding dress on. She sounds super creepy now that I'm saying it. And she had like a veil, and so you would constantly have her veil down, or you could have it back a little bit so you could see her face. But I would actually go and hide her in my cupboard at night time because I just couldn't, I just felt like she was staring at me all the time after the Ouija board thing. Before that, I didn't give a crap. Like, she was just a doll. Anyway, so Yeah, constantly from that house. I actually have nightmares about that house now. It's just very strange being trapped in my room, weird things like that. And then I don't know if anything else happened at that house in particular, but we'd always hear strange things, and so I felt unsettled. And if I was there by myself, which all my memories of that house, I'm by myself, it's probably why I have bad dreams about it. But I always have like this feeling that someone's right near me watching me. Fast forward to when I'd had my second son. So I was in my early 20s, and I was probably about 25, 24 around there. And my second son, he was going to daycare. He was about 2 years old. And, oh no, he would have been a bit older than that. I would have been about 26, 27 then. Anyway, so I had him, and he'd come home one day and he was acting very strange. And he kept looking around everywhere around us, like there was something there. And I was like, what's going on? And he would talk about someone called Christy, and like just acting very strange. And then he started, over a couple of months, he started trying to like harm himself and doing very self-harm type things. And he was only like 2 or 3 or something at the time, so he could talk and he could do all the things, but he didn't really understand what was going on. And he would say like, Christy wants me to come with her. And I, at this stage, was like, okay, this sounds like a shadow person, which is a being that appears to little children or the elderly, and they will befriend children, but they will then go and harm them so that they come with them. And so I believe they're a form of demon, basically. Anyway, and so we had a few instances where he tried to hurt himself to end his life, and he was not suicidal. Like, he was just, I think this being just sort of affected him. It was really, really creepy. Anyway, and the house that we lived in was on a ley line, like that was connected to the hospital, which was like 4 roads over from us. So super creepy. And there was also spirits of these 3 little boys, which I had believed might have drowned because they had like a blue tinge to them. And my 2 little boys would see them, and they refused to go in my backyard. And I was like, well, that's creepy. I don't want them out there then. And we had like this pool, because we rented this house. We had this pool that I think I half swam in it once, because it was just, it felt like people were watching you the whole time. The pool was always broken. Like, the pump would never, like, we'd have people come out all the time for the real estate to fix it, and then it would just break again. And it was just like, why? And the water, I think, was only ever clean that one time that we went swimming, and it just nothing would work properly. Anyway, and then the whole backyard was full of like these giant holes, like snake holes or something. So they never played out the back. We just played out the front of this property. And really bad people in this area, really bad vibe. We actually moved there to save money on rent so we could go and buy our own house. And we were there, I think, for 5 years. It was horrible. Anyway, so there's all these creepy, weird things going on. Meanwhile, my son's being attacked by this fucking, I think, shadow person, demon thing. And it got to the point where we ended up doing like an exorcism type thing, because he was becoming like a completely different person. And so I had learned how to do that. I had studied that, and I had been guided in that. And I did that a total of 2 times, and it worked. And I ended up putting these, like, I don't know what you would call them, maybe like sigil, like runes and things like that, but in little bags. And we literally had to go around the whole house and put these things in spots of the house where no one would find them later on, and remove them. And God, it sounds so bad. But basically, while I was doing that, I found something in this cupboard, which was the boys' room, and it was like super creepy, like this like old I think it might have been bone or something like that. I don't know, I can't remember it now, but it was really creepy. And I was like, that might be why this house is so haunted, why it's so like a magnet for dark entities and things like that. And I remember he'd been cleared of this being she was gone, and I went to confront it because I could feel it around the house still, and he was at daycare, so there was no one else home except myself. And I went down into this back room, this really creepy part of the house. Well, the whole thing was creepy, but this it was like a sunroom, but it was like really shoddily put together, and it was made like all this. One side of it was just glass windows and doors, and the other side was like this really bad. It wasn't even wood, but it was like wall slat things. Anyway, so I went down there, and it was hiding in the corner. And I remember going in, and I'd put my protection around me, and I had Archangel Michael with me, kind of thing. And we went down into this room, and it was there, and then it stormed at me and was like right in my face. And I remember being like inwardly terrified, but I couldn't show that. And I was like, you have no, right to be here. You have no permission to be here. And I literally drove it out of my house. And so I went and picked up my son that afternoon, and I'll never forget this day. And we had to go to the shop on the way home from daycare. So we're sitting there, and we'd parked in this particular spot where we parked in the parking spot, and in front of our car was the shop, but there was like an elevated footpath. So where like my eye level was where this sort of like level was, right, with like a fence, and then the shops were right behind that. Anyway, and I remember sitting there, and I'm like, oh, just thinking about the day or whatever. And Odin goes, oh, Christy's there. I'm like, the most creepiest way he could possibly do it. And I'm like, what? And every single hair on my body stood on end. And I could feel someone staring at me. And I was just like, what? And then I looked up, and because I see a lot of my things through my third eye, so I see like visions. And after he'd pointed that out, I could then see this girl, but she was just sitting staring, like death staring us. And it was so creepy. And I was just like, hurry up to my husband. It was in the shop, and I was like, can you just get back to the car? And yeah, that was really eerie. And she was not allowed back in the house, so he would see her at daycare still. So I had to basically put like this protection thing around him, so she would make herself known to him, but she couldn't do anything to him, which was really good, obviously. And then we had this really eerie, weird thing happen actually before we even moved to that house, where I had we had my two sons, my first children, and we lived in this place called Figgins Bay, and basically you could only go into this area by one road, and this area was steep with narrow little lanes, and it was just really, really treacherous kind of thing to like get in and out of there. And when we lived there were a lot of rock falls and things like that, right? And we lived right on the edge of like this really steep cliff, and our house was like on the stilts, and you were overlooking this beautiful like inlet. It was very picturesque. It was beautiful. There was ducks waddling around. There was beautiful plants. It was rainforesty. It was so nice, right? But it was very, very remote. From like, you had to have a car to get in and out of there. You couldn't go any other way. Anyway, so I finally got in a car for myself, and my husband had his own car, and he was a blacksmith, so he would leave early in the morning. And this one really wintry day, there's a bit of ice on the road. And so this is like the first day where I got my own car, and I was going to go drop my kids off at daycare. And then I was going to go, and I was going to just like go to a cafe or something, and go to the beach, or just sit on the sand or whatever. Like something really nice for myself. And anyway, my day hadn't even started yet, and I got a phone call, and my husband was like, can you come and help me get back to the house? And I was like, what? And he'd pulled up to this set of lights not far from our house, probably about 10 minutes away, and he'd slid straight into the back of this person's car. I don't think their car was even injured even slightly. Our car though was like this tiny little Daihatsu Charade, so it was completely totaled. Anyway, so I had to drive out and make sure that he got back and nothing fell off the car and everything. So we drove back to our house, got home, and then the car wouldn't start. that like the car I was supposed to have. And we're like, how does that work? And so we had like our mechanic friend have a look at it, and he said, he's like, did you guys come and cut this wire? And I was like, what are you talking about? Why would we cut our own wires in our own car? Like we need it to go. Anyway, and he was like, the only way that this car hasn't started, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know like which wire it was or where it was or whatever, but um, basically he'd said that you'd had to have wire cutters and like move it apart a little bit, and then the wires inside had been cut. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like literally there's no one up where we lived. Everyone, all the other houses around us were holiday homes. And what was that noise? That was me moving my leg on there, but I heard a noise out there. This might have been the neighbours, maybe. I've been hearing a lot of voices lately. Like I was doing yoga the other day, and there was like someone breathed, like sighed right next to me, and I was like, okay. And I heard like someone else talk, like I think earlier in that day, and I was like, okay. So where I live is like super creepy haunted, like not my house itself, but the land. I think there was a battle here. Something happened before there were houses here. Anyway, just to set the tone. Anyway, so he basically said it's pretty impossible for how this happened anyways. Like even if someone had come up and somehow broken into your car, which they didn't because I would have heard it, he said that the wire was cut, but the plasticky stuff around it wasn't really cut enough to do the cutting. Like it was cut in the middle without it being impacted that much on the outside. So it was very like weird and paranormal feeling. Anyway, and so in that particular house, we had like a sunroom all the way in front, the front part of our house that you could see down onto the road. You can see our car from there, right? So if I was sitting in the lounge room or at our table, like the dining table, I could see my car. So that's why I was like, I don't think someone broke into my car and did that, because I would have seen it, heard it, whatever. And that house was like not soundproof. So, and all outside was all gravel. So you hear everything in that house. You would know if there was anyone around and that sort of thing, which was kind of good in a security way, because you'd know people were wandering around and they shouldn't have been. Anyway, so the days before that, though, I'd had this really weird, intense feeling like someone was staring at me from my car, so much so that I would close all my curtains and I wouldn't have my curtains open. So whatever it was attached to the car, I think, and just didn't want anyone having it, driving it, whatever. Because then later on, when they got that part of the car fixed, and later on, my car would literally stop. Like, we were driving on Parramatta Road, which is a very, very busy road. If you don't know Sydney at all in Australia, Parramatta Road is like, it's a main thoroughfare basically. And so I think it's like a 3-lane or 4-lane highway, like on one side of the road. And then it's the same on the other side. I think it's 3 lanes. Anyway, we're on the inside lane driving, and my car just stops. It's a Commodore. It's not like a new Tesla. This was years ago. Anyway, so yeah, very weird things happen with that particular car. Anyway, so fast forward, I've had many other things happen in that time. But lately, I have had... okay, so about a month ago, I was really sick. And just before I was really sick, actually, I remember waking up and I saw this, you know that state you're in just before you're fully awake, but you can see and you can understand what's going on around you and you can hear everything, but you're like still a little bit groggy. By the way, that sound you're hearing is my puppy dog. She's bored and she's sitting on a different part of the lounge. Anyway, so I'm waking up, something's woken me up, some sort of sound, and I've opened my eyes, and drifting up from where I was, which was right at the bed obviously, drifting up was like this plasma-y blue baby, and so there was someone else with her, but I didn't focus on that bit. And then she went up and through my door up into the roof and left, and I was like, oh, and I didn't get like a creepy weird vibe at all. And then probably about 1 or 2 days later, I had the same sensation that someone was next to me. And I had this string of really weird dreams, and I was aware that someone was standing next to my bed. And I was like, well, that's creepy. But anyway, so when I wake up, um, the vision that I saw, so it was actual, like I could see it with my physical eyes. And I think because you're in that state of asleep awake, it's a weird state. I think there's like a word for it. It's like beta state or the alpha state or whatever it is. I don't know, but your senses are very much more attuned to um, just energy in general, and you're more aware of things, right? Anyway, so I wake up and there's this girl, and I don't ever see her face. She's standing, like, but walking away from me, so I only see her hair. So she's got this long black hair, and she's walking away from me, and she just walks through the door, and I'm like, it's creepy, Samara vibe. It's like full on right there. But anyway, I didn't. I mean, the dreams I had weren't fantastic, so I'm presuming she wasn't great. And I do all my protection stuff, and like I have all these beings protecting me. So I didn't actually have anything happen, but they still are able to somehow affect your dreams. It's very strange. So, well, everyone's quite vulnerable in their sleep state, so it does make sense. Anyway, and then so I ended up with tonsillitis, and I often get it on this side, and then it infects my ear, right? So I have that, and then about 2 days later, I end up with the flu, right? So I'm just like all types of messed up. And then I think it was like the second night I was sick, and I was like, oh, I'm dying, full man flu version of it. And I remember I'd actually been asleep. So I was in that still like half sleep, half wake state. And I was waking up, and there's this old Indian woman, and she was completely hunched over, but to the side. It was very, very odd. And I couldn't see her head at all. Like, it was very strange. And I knew exactly who she was. And it was like, I don't know, do you know when you have a dream and you just know all the information in the dream, but you don't know where you got the information from? It's just there. So anyway, so this woman's there, and she's like an Indian medicine woman or something. And she's got this wooden spoon, and I don't know where her other arm was. I presume it's like it was curled up underneath where her head was. It was very creepy, might I add. Just full creep factor, 1,000, right? And I don't know that she was there to help me. I don't get that vibe. But I was very vulnerable, very sick. And I don't even think I'd done any of my protection stuff because I was so sick. I was like dead sick. Anyway, she comes up to me with this big wooden, long wooden spoon. And she's trying to shove it in my mouth to give me something. And I wouldn't open my mouth. And I was like, no, you can't just like come in here and not tell me anything and just presume that I want your medicine, if that's what it is even. And so I refused. And she was like, ugh. She didn't even talk. She was like making this weird gurgly grunting sound. Like she's just like, just take it kind of thing. And I'm like, no. And I asked Source to just come and, I think it was actually Archangel Michael. I asked him to come in, and she was taken away pretty quickly. Not cool. That was really creepy, that one. And it stuck with me for quite some time. And then I got better. And then about 2 weeks passed, and I started feeling like there was something around me. So this is entering the time that I've just passed now. And yeah, I felt really watched, felt like there was something going on. And my mental state, I used to suffer from depression and things like that quite a while ago, but lately nothing at all. I've been quite high vibe on my path. I've been, doing everything, being very active, doing yoga every day. So my mental state's been very fantastic, actually. Enter last Thursday, Friday through to the weekend, and I've been on a weight loss journey for the last 2 years. Fantastic, lost 20 kilos, go me. And I've been doing keto for the last couple of months, and it's been helping me amazingly. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go off that for a little while and just live my best life. Perfectly fine. I got to, last Thursday, I think it was a Wednesday, and I was like, oh my God, everything's bad, everything's terrible. Felt very low on myself, and like I have only put 2 kilos back on since being off keto, just from birthday party food, to Easter to everything, which is not a lot when you think about it, when you've been living your best life. Anyway, but I've been doing yoga every day, sometimes twice a day, and doing all that, going for walks, all the things, right? So I haven't been just sitting around doing nothing. Anyway, but in my mind, I'd been like pushed down this very dark, sad, weird thing, right? So it's very out of the blue, uncharacteristic for me at the moment. And so much so I could not find light in anything. I couldn't visualize things. I couldn't put my light around myself, nothing, right? So, which night was it? We're on Wednesday now. So it must have been, I want to say Monday night, Sunday night, one of them, one of those nights. And basically, I'd woken up. Well, no, sorry. Let me fast forward to the actual occurrence, but I'll get to that in a second. So during that particular night, I'd had a string of weird dreams that didn't make any sense. Imagine that someone was making dreams for you, a dream maker. If someone was making dreams and they've never had a dream before, but they were trying to manifest that and trying to do it, but they just sucked at it and it didn't make any sense. That was my night. And I was just like, what? Like floating through with your own consciousness and you're aware and you're just like, what? This doesn't even make sense, right? And I would wake up and I don't remember having anything scary happen. So this was why it was really weird. And I'd wake up, which I never do this, in that full gasp thing sitting up. And I was like, that's so dramatic, and American movies and stuff. Like I never have this happen, right? So why? Anyway. And then I would go to the bathroom or whatever, I'll come back to bed, fall straight back asleep again, like nothing had happened. Very strange. But I would be completely like sweaty when I woke up, and then I'd be fine and dry when I came back. So it was very strange. Anyway, and fast forward to about 2:30 in the morning, very close to the witching hour, might I add. But I did look at my phone at one point, and it was about 2:30. So this was around 2 o'clock that this happened. Anyway, so I'm in this weird dream that didn't make sense, and I was aware that something was next to my bed, but in line with it. So I have a very tall bed, like one of those big, tall, cottagey kind of wooden beds. And so, this being would have been about 4.5 feet high, maybe. So not very tall, like a toddler, but around there, like a baby standing. Anyway, so this thing is standing next to my bed, and I wake up, and I've never done this before, so this was why it was even stranger for me. So I could feel like the bed, so say your hands are just laying on the bed while you're sleeping, right? And then like you feel like the bed underneath your hand depressed, so it's like someone sat down or pushed down where your hand is. I woke up immediately to this feeling like something was about to grab my hand or like go underneath it and grab it, and it freaked me out, and I woke up to punching the air right in front of me. So I was laying there like facing this direction. That's how I kind of sleep. Anyway, I'm freaking out in my like inside, and I felt like I was like half sleep paralysis mode. So I was like, I did not want to get up and look, and my pillow and my blanket was kind of like scrunched up in front of where this thing was. So I could, if I wanted to, I could have just like looked over there. I didn't want to. But I kept my eyes closed, and I was like, whatever it is, I could tell it could see me through my bed, through the sheets, through the blankets, whatever's there. It doesn't matter if whatever I put in front of my face, it would have seen me, and it was so creepy. Full on demonic vibes, full on. Like I couldn't place what exactly it was other than that. But all I could see, so it wanted me to know it was there. And I could see it had these big, it was male. It had these massive, long, wrinkly feet. Like they were quite dark, but not black. Wrinkly feet, and like grandpa, sounds so mean, so sorry any grandpas watching this, but like grandpa feet. I don't know why that was the visual that it gave me, but these big, long human feet. There was no claws on them or anything like that. And then it was like it had no body after that. So there was these weird feet, and then it had like hands and stuff as well, obviously, but its body was like this black void. It was blacker than black, but it felt oily. And far out, Pepper. Good job. Just a second. All right. So my air conditioner on. Check that there are no people there. Okay. Yeah. So it had like human-ish hands, but they were really long, and it showed me that. Just like, oh, Pepper. Okay. Sorry, my puppy's really upset about something. Okay, so yeah, and then so I couldn't see anybody. It was just like this black thing, and then it felt like there was like this whole like portal kind of thing underneath it where it had come from. Super creepy. And again, black void. Like there was no color. There was no. It wasn't even black. It was blacker than black. I don't even know how to explain that. Anyway, and so I was laying there, and I was like, oh my god, like I need to get rid of this. Called in Archangel Michael, and I'm like, okay, something's not right. Like, there seemed to be like a struggle going on. And I could see like these like really faint flashes of light in the room. And I was like, oh, maybe that's them, having a battle kind of thing. Really cool. Anyway, and then I called in Archangel Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel to come in and help. And it was still not working. It was still there. It was still staying put. And I was like, well, you know what? It's not stronger than Source. So I called in Source. I said, Source, this is going against my free will. This is affecting me. It's not supposed to be here. And basically just went, can you just dissolve this being or take it back to where it belongs or whatever? And it did. Source did that, and I literally witnessed it like dissolving and completely disappearing. And I was like, can you get rid of any residual crap that it's left on me, in me, around my home, whatsoever? And within probably about 4 or 5 minutes, my house was completely scoured clean of this horrible entity. And I just felt completely normal again. And that's when I checked my phone. It was like 2:35 or something. And then I got up, went to the toilet, and mind you, whenever I'd gone to the bathroom or like got up earlier in the night, my imagination, which this never happens to me because I have a lamp on in my kitchen all the time, and it comes all the way down the hallway, so it's pretty illuminated in the hallway. Like you can't really sort of not see what things are. And I had like a basket of laundry that was clean that I needed to put away the next day sitting next to the toilet door. Like it was just next to the laundry bathroom area. And I knew what it was. I knew that there was like a pair of jeans sitting on the side of it, like that one of the legs had fallen off the edge kind of thing. And I was like, okay, mental note, they're a pair of jeans. So before this whole thing had happened, the time before that when I'd gone out to the bathroom, I went to the bathroom a lot that night. I don't know why. It's probably nervous energy. It looked like a little kid laying on it. I was like, nope, that's not cool. I literally kicked the basket. Not if there was a kid there wasn't. They wouldn't have been injured. But I turned it so it didn't look like that. And then I was like, it looks like pants again. So, oh my God, it was really creepy though. And it was like everything was intensified. Like this being just wanted me to be in fear and be like creeped out and not wanting to have things happen. Also, on top of that, my what's it called, iPad, I've taken that to the Greenstone investigation, and it corrupted and just wouldn't work and got rid of all the files, blah 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 blah. We know that story. If you've watched that, I think I talked about it in that. My iPad, I'd been using it the day before this happened, and it completely, like the whole screen went green. I was watching Vikings at the time, so I could still hear it on my earphones, and the whole screen went like this weird olive color green. Could still hear it, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'll try to turn it off and turn it on again. That's the thing you do, isn't it? And it wouldn't turn off. It wouldn't do anything, and I was like, oh, okay. So I left it because I was like, maybe it just needs to fully, like, I don't know, do something by itself over in the corner by itself. And so, and it had been charging at the time, so there was no reason it should have turned off whatsoever. Anyway, So I've just left it unplugged. I just left it because I was like, well, if the battery runs out and it reboots itself after I click it back in, maybe it'll work. So the next day, I'm like, oh, like my poor iPad's dead. So we just sort of forgot about it and left it to its own self. And then my husband, I swear he's magical. He will like fix things that people think are broken. And I'm like, Anyway, fast forward to like later that day, it was like 6 o'clock the next day. And he just magically somehow turns it on after I've tried probably, I don't know, 6 times in the afternoon to turn it on. I pushed the button in, I held it in for like a minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, all the things. I did all the things, right? He touches it and it comes back alive. Thank you, husband. Anyway, so that happens. And then the same afternoon, I think it was the same afternoon, or maybe it was the day before when everything else happened, my lamp in my kitchen that I just changed the globe for not that long ago, it had broken as well. And I feel like there's always something happening, and it's been over the last couple of weeks while this entity has been around. There's just been a whole bunch of things that shouldn't have happened, and just the creep factor has been very apparent. And my dog has been acting very strange as well. And now that that's been cleared out, she's sort of gone back to her normal self and just barks at the neighbors and things again. But yeah, so a lot of weird attacks going on. A lot of people who are sensitives and light workers and things like that are having attacks at the moment. So those are some of my stories, not all of them obviously, but I thought I would come in and have a chat with you guys today and just let you know like how my world is going, and some of the things that impact my life. And I do think I bring things home when I go to investigations, but I do all my protection things. And I think spirits are just wandering around as well. You don't just become haunted. I think if you were to sit and really pay attention to each person's house, there would be spirits that just wander through. I know that here we do have spirits just come and go, and little kids, because I have children, so I think that they just come and they just check things out and hang around for a little while and then move on again. And I do like to pass spirits on if they need help, so I think maybe I stand out for that reason, maybe, I don't know. But it's very interesting, the entire paranormal world. So anyway, I'll leave it there, guys.